your girl Nick, and I'm about to make that Ethiopian lentil stew with braised greens, just like I said I would. I'm gonna make it for you guys. I'm just gathering together some of my ingredients, and I'm gonna go ahead and grab my apron really quickly because y'all have seen me cook and things can get really, hey, this is the wrong apron. Maybe I should get this apron instead. Let's just keep it green because that other apron said Taste of Texas, and this is definitely not a Taste of Texas. So, you guys, I'm gonna get this going. I've already started by chopping up some of my veg and measuring out a lot of my spices. Now, you guys know that I'm here to tell you all about substitutions that you can make. A lot of the things that go into this dish I don't have, but I do have substitutions for. So we're going to talk about all of that while I'm doing it. All right, you guys, so first things first, you see my tablet is in the background, and that's because if I've said it once, I've said it a million times. These recipes for African dishes, and this is an Ethiopian dish, are from Immaculate Bites. She's amazing, and I will link to her in my bio. I will put a link to her site for this recipe. She's amazing. She has all the recipes. But anyway, so I refer to that when I'm making this dish. There will be some substitutions, there will be some changes, but the end result is delicious. I don't know if it tastes exactly the same as what she makes, but it's delicious. So right now we are working on the lentils. What we have is I have soaked a cup of lentils in water. I soak them for about 2 hours. Lentils normally I don't soak, I just cook them for like 25 minutes in vegetable broth or water, and it's all good. But these have been soaking. My hands are clean. These have been soaking for about an hour. You can see there's still a little bit of water down in there. And that's what we're going to use to make the dish. Okay. Now, normally you use this spiced butter that I cannot pronounce the name of, but it's spiced butter and it's very specific to Ethiopia. What I'm using is about, and you're supposed to use about 1 to 2 tablespoons of that spiced butter. What I'm using is about a tablespoon of coconut oil and a tablespoon of salted butter. Now, if you're allergic to coconut oil and you don't have that special spiced butter and don't want to make it, just use 2 tablespoons of salted butter. That's what I'm using. Okay? That's the first thing. Then on top of that, I have my diced onion. I have some minced garlic, which I minced up about 3 cloves of garlic. These are medium to large cloves of garlic. Can you see it? Right here. Medium to large cloves of garlic. One of the cloves I used, I happened to be making some ketchup today, so I used that clove over there. And then I have about, this is about a tablespoon or so of ginger, fresh ginger. Fresh ginger has a totally different flavor from minced or dried ginger that you buy at the store. This is fresh ginger, and you really need that for this recipe. You really need that. Ginger is good for so many things, but that's a whole other video. Anyway, fresh ginger. And then we have some cumin, some dried cumin. Now, I do not buy coriander. Part of this recipe calls for coriander, but there are other things that can make that flavor of coriander, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Here we have some, the recipe calls for a tablespoon of tomato paste. I just happen to be making some ketchup today, so instead of tomato paste, I used the tomato puree from part 1 of making ketchup, which making ketchup is no big deal. It doesn't take very long, but this is as close as I could get to tomato paste because I don't buy that. And if you want to know how to make that, you want to know how to make ketchup, that's on the blog, and I'll link that as well. So beyond that, we have our berbere. I never can say it right. Our spices for this dish. And then we have some vegetable broth, of course, we need that. And then we need some cilantro or parsley, whichever you want. It should be about 2 tablespoons. And then some salt and pepper. Salt and pepper for everything, obviously. So let's talk about this spice here. This is my berbere. So what I have here is I have some smoked paprika or some standard paprika. I also have some granulated garlic. I have some dried basil over here on my tabletop because I only have fresh basil in the garden. This is dried, so that's what I have, about a tablespoon of that. And then I don't have white pepper, so I have black pepper. I don't know if you can see it. There's black pepper right here. There's about a teaspoon of that. There's a half a tablespoon of some cinnamon here. There is some ground nutmeg. And I grind my nutmeg. I usually buy whole nutmeg because I like to use it in my greens. It just gives your greens an extra little something, an extra little oomph. And so there is my ground nutmeg. I just used this microplaner to do that. And then I have some cinnamon. There's my cinnamon. That is about a half a tablespoon. I have some fenugreek, and I'm using fenugreek seeds because I don't have powder, and I could have easily powdered that like in my NutriBullet, but I chose to just keep the seeds. It's gonna cook down, it'll be fine. And then I have cumin, which y'all know I love cumin. That's here. That's about a teaspoon of cumin. And then I have some hot cayenne pepper right here. And I only used about a teaspoon of that. The recipe calls for a tablespoon, but I only use a teaspoon. So here's the thing. The berbere spice is very complex. That's going to go both in my lentils and in my greens. Now, my guys also asked to have sausage in their stew tonight. So I am going to add that. And basically, I'm just going to cook the sausage separately and then add it into the stew at the end. So let's get going on that, you guys. Let's just get going, and I'm going to show y'all how I put it all together. Now, I will say this. The berbere spice, I do not keep on hand. But now I'm starting to think, I have an extra spice jar, and I'm starting to think that I should just keep that in the spice jar because that spice is so delicious. And a lot of African cooking, the spice, African and Indian cooking, the spices are what it's all about. So some of the ingredients may be the same as what we might use, but the spices make the big difference. So that berbere may make the cut and make it into the spice jar. Anyway, let's get going, you guys. I've got my everything pan over medium heat. I have a gas stove, and I'm just starting on medium. I'm going to at this point, I'm going to add in my oil. I'm going to add in my butters. And I'm just gonna let that cook until my onions are translucent. Your nose will tell you when it's ready. All right, so after about a minute or two, everything has cooked down. Brown deliciousness. It smells amazing in here. And I'm gonna add in my tomato paste. So, oh my gosh, it smells amazing in here. I really wish you guys could smell this, see this. You can see it, but you can't see it in real life. It's amazing. And then I'm gonna add in that one full cup of soaked lentils. Okay. All right, y'all, so really quickly, some of the things that are called for in this recipe, I do not have. So we talked about the berberine spice. It calls for cardamom. The greens call for cardamom. I do not have cardamom. Berberine spice is not easily available here. Like, I can't easily find that. And even some of the spices that go into it to make it yourself, I cannot find them. One of those spices, either I cannot find them or I do not like them. So one of those spices is cardamom. But these recipes already have a lot of the spices that have the flavor profile of cardamom. Cardamom. I say that 10 times fast. Cardamom. Anyway, those spices are like the ginger, the nutmeg, the cloves, the cinnamon. And we are already using a lot of those spices in these dishes. So rather than going and getting cardamom that you might use once, maybe twice, you won't use them a lot, just use spices that you do keep on hand. I keep cinnamon on hand. You use them on pancakes, use them in jerk seasoning. You use them on so many other things, in coffee, that, that is something that's doable. And you can get it anywhere, anytime, very inexpensively. Same thing with the ginger. If you mix some nutmeg and some cinnamon. Nutmeg, cinnamon, ginger. What else can you do? You can just do so many things to make up for that spice. So I encourage you, when you see something in a recipe, to just say, hey, what else can I use in place of that and still make this recipe great? And do that. That's what I do all the time. Like, this is the braised greens is supposed to be collard greens. Well, I'm in Houston, Texas, and collard greens, we were done with that like 4, 5, 6 months ago. We were not growing collard greens, but I still had some kale growing out there, which is amazing in and of itself. I still had some kale going. So we're using kale instead of collard greens. And it's gonna be just as delicious. The flavor profile is gonna be just as great. And that's it. We'll be happy. Only thing I'm going to change about this recipe is adding in the sausage for the guys.